Story 1. Nirvana and Pearl Jam open for Red Hot Chili Peppers. San Diego Fairgrounds, December 28, 1991. I was unaware that I was witnessing a cultural phenomenon. I was aware how awesome all these bands sounded live. Story 2. The Who in 1982. It was in Indianapolis and was a huge deal. I was actually shown on local television buying a t-shirt with my soon-to-be wife. We both still have those t-shirts. Story 3. Mid-90s. I saw 9 Inch Nails on Halloween in Houston. The opening act was Marilyn Manson. It was both of them at their peak of angsty, raw emotion. The stage was a giant Ouija board. The whole thing was amazing. Well, the parts one remember at least. Story 4. Prince. Hands down. Ran around in high heels for 3 hours. Hit all the notes, wailed on guitar. Danced atop a grand piano. Orchestrated a killer band. The man could do it all. Story 5. Bonnie Raitt at the Minnesota State Fair. Summer 1990. Stevie Ray Vaughan had been killed in a helicopter crash just a day or two before. She gave a great tribute to him and really put her heart into the show. Best I ever saw. I'll never forget it. Story 6. The Killers at the Cool House in Toronto. This was shortly after the release of Hot Fuss. The venue was really small and intimate, and they played the entire album. It was unreal. Story 7. Most amazing energy. Gogol Bordello. I can't believe I was there. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Nirvana, Pearl Jam all together. Last-minute tickets to see Eric Clapton. Seats were behind the stage in an arena, so I was still in a seat. He walked around back for some solos. It was like being about 10 rows back center stage. This was the same lineup as the Unplugged session. Story 8. The Flaming Lips put on the most fun shows I have ever seen, and I have worked in the concert industry, so I have been to a lot of shows. The lead singer frequently gets inside a giant clear rubber ball and rolls over the audience. They have people dressed in animal costumes dancing on stage and really fun visuals. One time I took 1/8 of mushrooms and went to see them at an indoor venue. They gave everyone who entered a laser pointer and would periodically shut off the lights and have everyone aim at one thing, making it glow like a celestial body. It was amazing. Story 9. Not a fan at the time, but I got a free invite to see Goo Goo Dolls. Best to this day, 23 years later, 3-piece band I've ever seen live. Just the 3 of them rocked out for 45 minutes. Bought both CDs, or was it 3 then, the next day. Story 10. 21 Pilots, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. February 2017. I've been to many shows in my 48 years, but I've never been to one where each and every member of the audience was captivated in a way that it felt we were all breathing in the same rhythm, our hearts were beating at the exact same times. Story 11. Neutral Milk Hotel. Technically just Jeff Mangum. It was the first time he had toured since In the Aeroplane Over the Sea came out over 10 years later. He had no opening act or band. It was just him and a worn guitar. When he played the titular song for In the Aeroplane Over the Sea, he asked the audience to hum the trumpet parts, and everyone there knew every note. Story 12. Kiss put on my favorite show, but my favorite concert was Iron Maiden. Bruce Dickinson did not stop running from one side of the stage to the other for the entire set. Excellent concert. Story 13. Live Aid, July 1985. I was traveling in London with my girlfriend, and we got tickets. They were up in the bleachers. It didn't matter, it was still an incredible day and night. 40 years ago. I just cannot believe how quickly time flies. Story 14. My answer is pretty lame, but I saw John Fogerty at Ravinia in Highland Park a few years ago. It was the mix of an intimate setting along with the perfect blend of gummies and beer. Fogerty sounded awesome, and he sang all the hits. Story 15. The Cure at Royal Albert Hall, March 29, 2014. A whopping 45 songs. Simply amazing. I've seen them many times after, and still, this one beats any other gigs. Story 16. Because I can't pick just one, my top 5 in chronological order. MC Hammer, Too Legit to Quit Tour, 1992. Ozzy Osbourne, Retirement Sucks Tour, 1995. Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill Tour, 1996. Korn and Disturbed, Pop Sucks Tour 2002. Garth Brooks, Stadium Tour 2022. Honorable mention, Tori Amos, Plug Tour, 1998. Story 17. I saw Jamiroquai at Victorious Festival in the summer of 2023. I planned a 2-week trip around Europe to see them perform live, as I am in my mid-30s. They are my favorite band, and I still had not seen them. It was worth every penny. Story 18. The last Smashing Pumpkins show at the Metro in Chicago in December 2000. They ended up reuniting a few years later. It was around 4.5 hours long, and it was just the most amazing, emotional, electrifying show I had seen up to that point. I was 16. Story 19. A few come to mind: Talking Heads, Page Hall, University at Albany, 1976. They were the opening act for the Good Rats. The Police at the Hullabaloo, Rensselaer, March 1979. Their first trip to the United States, prior to heading to New York City. REM. In Scotia, New York, with about 200 people. October 12, 1982, with Mitch Easter's band Let's Active opening. Neville Brothers and Fishbone at the Chance, in Poughkeepsie, New York. Early 1980s. I probably can't remember the others that I should. Laugh out loud. Story 20. I saw Ghost open for Tool. It was amazing. I saw, in this order, Anthrax, Testament, Megadeth, and Iron Maiden. Amazing. But the most fun was probably a Warped Tour. Seeing Pepper, Anti-Flag, and Papa Roach was a ton of fun. Anti-Flag disassembled the drum set mid-set and reassembled it in the middle of the pit on a dirt lot. That was wild. He finished the set blind, with a shirt wrapped around his head due to how much dirt we kicked up. That was insane. Story 21. Sonic Youth during the 1999 tour. Fugazi in 1998. Eels during a tryout in a very small venue in 2019. Mogwai in 2003. Dinosaur Jr. in 1994. Motorpsycho in 2004. Edit. I forgot one absolute topper. A Perfect Circle in 2003 in an old church in Cambridge, UK. Story 22. David Lee Roth's Eat M and Smile Tour. Geek 80s showmanship and musicianship with Steve Vai, Billy Sheehan, Greg Bissonette, and Brett Tuggle on keyboards. Second would be Typo Negative and Pantera in 1991. Face Melting. Story 23. 2010 Muse Resistance Tour. This was Muse at their peak and the first time I got to see them headline. I didn't care for many of their albums after Resistance, so there was not a single dud in the set for this show. I was stunned afterwards. Bonus. Silverson Pickups opened for them. Story 24. I was at the Los Angeles Coliseum in the mid-1980s to see the Rolling Stones, and Guns N' Roses opened for them. They were perfect and made the entire show. I have seen the Stones several times, and by far Guns N' Roses owned that night. Story 25. I can't remember the date, late 90s I guess. I saw Slayer play at the Universal. Soulfly and somebody else opened. It was a pretty basic stand there and bang your head show because there were seating, fold-up metal ballpark seats, in the middle of the show floor. What I'll never forget, and the reason why I replied to this comment is, by the second Slayer song, every single one of those seats had been ripped out of the floor, and the rest of the show was kids motoring over the bent bolts sticking out of the concrete, bloody people everywhere. It was a massacre, and they never skipped a beat, just kept going. The image of those seats flying up in the air and then being crowd-surfed out of the way while absolute chaos broke out in the pit was a thing of unnatural beauty I don't think I'll ever forget or see again. Story 26. The Clash London Calling Tour in 1976 in New York City. The entire place was vibrating because everyone was stomping their feet in time to the music. It was amazing. Story 27. I took my mom and my aunt to the Eagles before they both passed, and it was a fun show. I didn't know it would be the last concert either of them would get to see. I took my dad to the Rolling Stones this year, and they still put on a fantastic show. He turns 70 this year, and I'm taking him to pretty much everything he wants to see until he can't anymore. He asked to see a Pink Floyd cover band this summer while he was recovering from spinal surgery last week. I got the tickets immediately. If you don't know what to get your parents for holidays, birthdays, or anniversaries, experiences that you can share with them cannot be beat. assuming you have a good relationship with your parents. Story 28. I've been to a large number of concerts, from festivals all the way down to club venues. There are a couple of bands I've seen 10 or more times. Even with all of that, there's one band, one live show that stands head and shoulders above the rest. Iron Maiden. I saw them just a couple of years ago, and even in their 60s and 70s, they brought more energy than bands I've seen that are half that age. Of course, it's a big production, and that helps. But really, it's the fact that these musicians clearly still love to play. I also had a bit of extreme luck and was invited by a total stranger to be first to the barrier. If you get the chance, go see Iron Maiden. I don't care what kind of music you like. Story 29. In 1996, I saw Tool at the now long-closed International Ballroom, which was an empty grocery store used as a music venue. It was very cold outside but hot and humid inside because of all the people packed into the building. They were throwing buckets of water into the crowd from the stage to try to cool us off. My buddy and I were very close to the stage. Maynard was bald, wearing a Speedo or something similar, and painted silver, with a blue spotlight shining on him. It was hard to watch the stage because of all the motion going on around us. If anyone fell down, everyone grabbed them and pulled them back onto their feet before they got trampled. When we went back outside, everyone was steaming in the cold air. It was awesome. Given how successful Tool became in the years to follow, I think I was fortunate to see them in such a small venue. Story 30. Beyoncé's Renaissance concert. Saw her in Houston and Detroit. It was amazing. She had no opening act, just sang ballads for the first 3 songs, and then it was a thrilling ride of hit after hit with incredible outfits, amazing dancers, an exceptionally talented backup band with a horn section, wonderful lights, and surprise guest acts. Story 31. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble, August 26, 1990. Alpine Valley in Wisconsin. The best was when he got up there with Eric Clapton, Robert Cray, Nathan East, Jimmy Vaughan. Amazing concert. Stevie Ray Vaughan blew Clapton out of the water. In my opinion, he was mesmerizing. Rest in peace. Story 32. I was sobbing through songs like Perfect and I'm Just a Kid. They still speak to the emotional teenager inside my 34-year-old body. Story 33. I've seen a lot of shows in my life, but the one that stands out was seeing Paul McCartney at Candlestick Park in San Francisco in 2014. This was the last concert at the stadium before it was to be torn down. On a whim, I got tickets for my wife and me, as well as our 2 sons, ages 15 and 18. This was the first big concert our kids attended, and Sir Paul was amazing. He had a great band with him, and they played songs from the Beatles, Wings, and various solo hits. He ran all over the stage and played guitar and piano with joy and super high energy. I especially loved when Live and Let Die was blasted out the speakers with flashing lights and fireworks. What a show. Story 34. I will never forget that night seeing Adele. The lights dimmed, and before her first note, you could feel the air crackle with anticipation. When she sang Someone Like You, every heart in the crowd synchronized, collective memories flooding back. It was not just music. It felt like we were all being healed together, belting our deepest regrets and unvoiced dreams. The concert was not just about the songs. It was a moment where strangers became a family, tied by raw emotion and notes that lingered long after the encore. Story 35. Neil Young and Crazy Horse in 1996. Most of the show was during a wind and rainstorm. The stage was soaked. Seeing Neil walk around dripping wet, playing his guitar while Crazy Horse jammed was a legendary rock experience. I think they did about a half-hour, 5-song encore. Story 36. I am not a huge rock fan, but Muse is the exception. I have been to their concerts 3 times, which is a lot considering I have been to about 10 big concerts total. Their concerts blur the lines between a concert and a full theatrical experience, at least more than any other I have been to. Story 37. AC/DC 2015. Just a stage, speakers, and Angus Young and Brian Johnson bouncing around. Such a simple setup that rocked. Eminem and Jay-Z home and home tour at Comerica Park in 2010. Story 38. Aurora at the Showbox Soto in Seattle. but Muse at Key Arena and Soundgarden at the Gorge are close. I also saw Rush as my first concert and first crowd surfed at Rise Against at Bumbershoot, so those were obviously memorable as well. Story 39. I was a touring musician with mostly rock and synth projects. My family creates gig posters for hundreds of bands and comedians, and I come from a family of musicians. I mention this to illustrate that I've been to more shows than I can count. Festivals, tours, backstage, green rooms, you name it. Hands down, the single best concert I attended from a musician's technical viewpoint was Yanni. That team knew what they were doing and made it all look so effortless. I was in awe every second. From a sound and lighting standpoint, Peter Gabriel's concert was unmatched. Things happened on stage that I've never seen before or since. He really pushes what is possible in a live setting with technology and art. As for the most emotional performances, it's a tie between The Cure and Jane's Addiction. I turned into a puddle during anything from Disintegration and Summertime Rolls is the most perfectly balanced, densely packed song sonically. It elicits an out-of-body experience when blasted at you. The most fun I ever had at a show was Gogol Bordello. It was 1 year before they skyrocketed with Start Wearing Purple. So the venue was about 1/16 full. With so few people in the audience, the band just came out into the crowd and stayed there. We all danced with them like loons while they played. It was magical. The best memory of a show, though, was the first time I played in a major venue. The butterflies beforehand, the crowd's roar, the sound being on point, nothing going wrong, and being asked to tour with the headliner after we played. I'll never forget that night. Story 40. Audioslave at the Cool House in Toronto, which was a small venue, held about only 2,500 people. They were amazing, and Chris Cornell was unbelievable. I saw them the following year at an arena venue. They were good, but nothing like seeing them in such a small venue. Story 41. I've got 3, but I'm going to go with the more recent concert of My Chemical Romance in 2022. I was enthralled by the atmosphere. Black velvet carpet on the stage, red curtains behind the band, and everyone dressed like Hot Topic circa 2004. It was like I was back in high school. The other 2 were U2 at Spartan Stadium in 2010 and Poison opening for Motley Crue in 2011. Vince Neil's voice hadn't started to go yet, and it turned out that ticket stub allowed me to go to another concert at the end of the month with Warrant opening for Poison. I was an 80s hair band fan in the 2000s.